All right, let's dive into Genesis chapter 11.
Okay.
We're going to unpack the core story here, just using the text itself. And what's really interesting is how it kind of packs two different stories together.
Yeah, it does. You've got the Tower of Babel account, which everyone sort of knows,
Yeah.
and then immediately following it, this really detailed genealogy.
Exactly. So two distinct parts, but connected. Let's try and see how the text weaves them together.
Sounds good. Where do you want to start? Babel.
Yeah, let's start with Babel. The text kicks off by setting the scene, right? It says, now the whole world had one language and a common speech.
Right. So, complete unity, linguistically speaking, according to this account. That's the baseline.
And then it describes their movement. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there.
Shinar. Okay. And that's where the big project gets started.
It is. And the text gets specific about, how they built it. They say, come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And it even notes they used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. It calls out those materials.
Interesting detail. It highlights their specific technology or choices, maybe.
Could be. And the text is super clear about why they're doing this. Their own words are quoted, come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens.
Reaches the heavens. Wow. Big ambition.
Huge. And the motivation continues, so that we may make a name for ourselves.
Okay, so fame, reputation.
And not be scattered over the face of the whole earth.
So that's key too. They want to stay together, centralized, prevent being spread out.
Exactly. Making a name, staying put, seems like a unified human project,
Yeah.
aiming for power,
Yeah,
identity.
it's consolidating everything. But this effort, well, it gets noticed, according to the narrative.
Right. The text says, but the Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the men were building.
Came down to see it. And the assessment is pretty striking.
It really is. The text quotes the Lord saying basically, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them.
Wow. So their unity and single language in this view gives them almost limitless potential.
That's how the text frames it. And that potential, well, it leads to a divine reaction.
Mm-hmm. The decision is made. The text says, come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other.
Direct intervention, aimed right at the source of their unity, the language.
Precisely. And the result is immediate based on the text.
Totally. It says, so the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth.
The very thing they wanted to avoid.
Exactly. And they stopped building the city, project halted, people dispersed.
And that's where the name comes from, right?
Yeah, the text explicitly connects it. That is why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world.
Babel meaning confusion, basically.
And it repeats the outcome for emphasis. From there, the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth.
So looking just at this story, this first part, what's the text highlighting?
Well, it seems to be about, collective human ambition maybe getting out of hand.
Possibly. And the power of unity, but also maybe its dangers from a divine perspective in this story.
Right. And it definitely provides an origin story within this text for why there are so many languages and why people are spread out everywhere.
It paints that picture very clearly. Unity, ambition, divine intervention, confusion, scattering. That's the sequence here.
Okay, so that covers the first big narrative, the universal event. But then the chapter just pivots, doesn't it?
It does, quite dramatically. Right after describing this global scattering, the text says, this is the account of Shem. A sharp zoom in.
From everyone everywhere down to one guy, Shem. And it starts tracing his line. He was 100 years old 2 years after the flood, when his son Arphaxad was born.
Yeah, very precise timing given. And the text follows this pattern, right? Father, age at son's birth, how much longer he lived, and mentions other kids too.
Exactly. So Shem lived 500 more years after Arphaxad, had other kids. Then Arphaxad, he's 35 when Shelah is born, lives another 403 years, has other kids.
The text keeps this structure going. Shelah is 30 when Eber's born, lives 403 more years. Eber is 34 when Peleg's born, lives 430 more years.
It's very methodical. Peleg is 30 when Reu is born, lives 209 more. Reu's 32 when Serug is born, lives 207 more.
Almost like a drumbeat through the generations. Serug is 30 when Nahor is born, lives 200 more.
And then Nahor, who's 29 when Terah is born and lives another 119 years, also having other children.
So this carefully traced line brings us to Terah.
Right. And the text says, after Terah had lived 70 years, he became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. So, boom, there's Abram.
Abram, the figure things seem to be building towards, and we get a few more family details about Terah's generation right here.
Yeah, like Haran, Terah's son, was the father of Lot.
Okay, Lot, who becomes important later.
And there's a sad note. Haran died young, basically. While his father Terah was still alive, Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans, in the land of his birth.
Ur of the Chaldeans. That location becomes important too. It also mentions marriages.
It does. Abram married Sarai, and the text makes a specific point. She was barren, she had no children.
That's flagged early on. Significant detail. And Abram's brother Nahor.
He married Milcah, who was Haran's daughter, his niece. The text also mentions another daughter of Haran, Iscah.
So, Kipian in the family, somewhat. Lots of connections there.
And then this family group starts a journey. Terah takes charge.
Right. The text says Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram.
Quite the crew. And together they set out from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to Canaan. That's the stated destination.
Canaan. But they don't quite make it, do they? Not in this chapter.
The text says, but when they came to Haran, they settled there. They stopped short.
Settles in Haran. And that's where Terah's story ends in this account.
Yeah, the chapter closes with, Terah lived 205 years, and he died in Haran.
So let's connect these two parts now. We have the scattering at Babel, this event affecting all humanity. Then immediately, this incredibly specific family tree.
Right after the world gets fragmented, linguistically and geographically, the focus narrows intensely.
What function does that serve, do you think, just based on how it's laid out here?
Well, it seems like the text is showing a path forward from that scattering. It's like saying, okay, the world is like this now, scattered and diverse.
But here is one particular thread, one lineage that we're going to follow through this new reality.
Yeah, it connects that post-flood, post-Babel world directly to Abram's family. It's picking one line out of the now scattered multitude that originated from Noah's sons, specifically Shem here.
So the structure itself tells a story. First, the broad picture of why humanity is dispersed, then immediately honing in on the lineage that will be central to the narrative moving forward.
It really feels like a pivot, doesn't it? Setting the stage.
Absolutely. It explains the why of the world's diversity and dispersion in its narrative terms, and then points towards the specific family line that the rest of the story will likely focus on.
Okay, so just to recap what Genesis 11 lays out. First, we get the story of the Tower of Babel human unity, ambition reaching for the heavens, the confusion of languages, and the scattering of people as a result.
Right. A narrative explanation for linguistic diversity and human dispersion.
Then part two, this meticulous genealogy, tracing a single line from Shem down through generation after generation.
Arphaxad, Shelah, Eber, Peleg, Ru, Serug, Nahor.
All the way to Terah and his sons Abram, Nahor, and Haran, including details about their family like Lot, Sarai's barrenness, and their journey from Ur towards Canaan, but ending up settling in Haran, where Terah dies.
It really bridges that gap from the universal post-flood world through the scattering event to the specific family that's about to take center stage.
So for you listening, here's something to chew on. Why do you think the text places this specific family history, the line leading to Abram, right after the story about the scattering of all peoples at Babel?
Yeah, what does that placement, that immediate shift in focus suggest about where this whole narrative is headed next? What's the significance of this family emerging right after that event?